A cruise ship looks like it's just floating there, carried by the sea, pushed along by its engines. But here's the strange part. The ocean it sits in gives this ship absolutely nothing. Not a drop of drinking water. Not a watt of power. Not a single meal. So everything you'd find in a small city, this ship has to make itself, from scratch, every single day. And that, not the fuel, is where the real money goes. Start with what you're actually looking at. A modern megaship like Icon of the Seas weighs around 250,000 tons. It carries close to 8,000 people once you add the crew. It cost around $2 billion to build. It has restaurants, theaters, water parks, hospitals, laundries, kitchens running around the clock. It is, by any honest measure, a floating town. And the moment it leaves port, that town is completely on its own. No water main, no power grid, no garbage truck coming in the morning. So the real question isn't what it costs to sail it. It's what it costs to keep an entire city alive in the middle of the ocean. So, what does a single day really cost? Let's start where everyone assumes the money goes. Fuel. And it is a lot of fuel. A ship this size burns somewhere around 200 tons a day at cruising speed. At today's marine fuel prices, that's roughly $120,000 a day just to move. $120,000 a day gone into the water. That sounds like the headline. It isn't, because moving the ship turns out to be one of the cheapest things it does. It's barely a tenth of the daily bill. Here's the first thing the ocean refuses to give water. The sea is everywhere, and not one drop of it is drinkable. So the ship makes its own, boiling and filtering seawater into roughly 1 million gallons of fresh water a day, enough to supply about 10,000 homes. For showers, pools, kitchens, laundry, 2,500 cabins. The ship is a water factory that happens to also be a holiday. Then there's power. No grid out here. So the ship runs its own power plant on the order of 80 to 100 megawatts of generating capacity. And a huge share of it has nothing to do with propulsion. It's air conditioning a steel hull in the tropics, running the desalination plant, the elevators, the galleys, the entire glowing skyline of entertainment. That hidden hotel load alone burns tens of thousands of dollars in fuel a day. Call it 60,000. Separate from moving the ship at all. Now feed everyone. Around 8,000 people. More than 20,000 meals a day. 3 times a day, with no supermarket for 1,000 miles. The provisioning, food and drink, bulk bought and stored in refrigerated holds the size of warehouses, runs to roughly $120,000 a day. But the single biggest cost on this ship isn't anything you can see from a deck chair. It's the people who run it. Around 2,300 crew. And the company doesn't just pay them. It houses them, feeds them, flies them in from around the world, trains them, rotates them. Add all of that up and the crew costs something like $270,000 a day. The town needs its citizens, and citizens are the most expensive thing of all. And then there's the cost almost nobody ever thinks of. The ship itself. $2 billion to build. And a ship like this works for maybe 30 years. Spread that $2 billion across every day it ever sails. Add in the interest on borrowing $2 billion. And the vessel is quietly spending itself at around $350,000 a day before a single passenger steps aboard. before the engines even start. The ship costs a fortune simply by existing, which leaves the last thing the ocean won't take off your hands: the mess. A city of 8,000 produces tons of garbage and wastewater every day. On land, trucks haul it away. Out here, there are no trucks. So the ship has to consume its own waste, incinerating, compacting, treating, digesting it down to something it can legally carry or release. Before it ever sees a port, it has to eat its own garbage before nightfall. And underneath all of it, the quieter lines, ensuring a $2 billion floating city full of people, around 25,000 a day, endless maintenance on a machine that can never fully stop, another 50,000. Port fees, the tugs, the never-closing theaters and ice rinks and aqua shows whose performers are on the payroll whether you watch or not, 60,000 more. So, add it all up. The water it manufactures, the power it generates, the food, the crew, the ship spending itself, the waste it has to swallow, the insurance, the maintenance, the show. A single mega cruise ship costs about $1 million a day to operate. Over 1/7 night cruise. That's around $7 million spent before the company earns a cent of profit. And remember where the fuel sits in all of that. Moving the ship, the part you assumed was the whole story, is barely a tenth. The other 90% isn't spent going anywhere. It's spent standing still and staying alive. Think about what that really means. Every day at sea, this ship makes enough fresh water for 10,000 homes out of water that was undrinkable 1 second before. It generates the power of a small town. It feeds a town. It buries a town's worth of waste. It's running a 5-star resort with 2,800 rooms. Except this resort also builds its own water supply, runs its own power station, and crosses an ocean overnight. About $180 per guest per day just to keep the lights on. The vacation is the easy part. That's the hidden cost of a cruise ship. Not the fuel, not the distance. The real cost is self-sufficiency. The staggering price of pretending the ocean is providing, when in truth the ship has to invent an entire city out of salt water and steel every single morning and quietly dismantle it by midnight. The most expensive thing a cruise ship does isn't sail. It's survive. That's what we do here. We find the bill that isn't on the receipt for the things you thought you already understood. Next time, an aircraft carrier, and why the most expensive ship ever built spends most of its life doing absolutely nothing. This was Cost Atlas, the hidden cost of everything. See you in the next one.